Alright everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Champions League Match Week 2 prediction video, where today I'm going to pretend like it doesn't deeply hurt me that while everyone's off playing their Champions League football, my team's only just gone ahead to lose in their first Europa League game of the season. I promise you, it doesn't hurt, I just cry every single night now. But of course, looking at things today, as I said, we're going to be talking about Champions League Match Week 2. And starting things off, we have Sporting CP versus Tottenham Hotspurs. Now what a game to start things off. Obviously looking at Sporting, although they haven't been great in their domestic season, they've just come off of a 3-0 win versus Eintracht Frankfurt. And I mean, I have to say, on the attacking front, they were ruthless. And if they're able to do that versus this Tottenham Hotspurs team, if they're able to kind of replicate their play, I think we could see a huge surprise here. As we know, Tottenham Hotspurs on the defensive front, they have the ability to switch off every now and then. I do think that that's probably inevitable if you've got Ben Davies and Eric Dyer hiding somewhere in your defense. But at the end of the day, looking at these two teams, although Sporting could hold a surprise, I do think Tottenham Hotspurs will still get the win. Obviously, looking at them, still unbeaten in the Premier League. Once again, very strong start to their Champions League campaign with the 2-0 win. My only worry is the fact that they had to wait for Marseille to get a red card before the goal started to flow in. Once again, very wholesome moment as Richarli's son got to hug Richarli's dad after the game. Once again, things you love to see. But looking at this current Tottenham Hotspurs team, although they can switch off defensively, they should still get a win here. Now, moving on, we've got Poulsen versus Inter. Now, I have to say, I feel so sorry for Poulsen. They've been given an insanely difficult group, and versus Barcelona, I mean, initially they were holding up well. I mean, they had the damn walls in place, but I mean, knock after knock, that wall eventually broke. Obviously, not the most flattering loss for them, but I do think to an extent it was expected. Obviously, versus Inter in this game, once again, I think it's also expected that Inter should get a win here, and I think they'll do just that. Look, at the end of the day, although Inter lost horrifically to Bayern Munich, 2-0 I believe it was, at the end of the day they've still got a very, very strong squad. As we know, they've got quality throughout. Even though they were missing Romelu Lukaku in their previous game, they've still got so much quality and they desperately need to pick it up. I think the only saving grace in that game was, what's his name? Onana. Now jumping into game number 3, we've got Bayer Leverkusen versus Atletico Madrid. Now obviously looking at Atletico Madrid, they've just beaten Porto 3-1, all 3 of those goals coming past the 90th minute. Once again, it's a team that I would really like to say that I think are strong favourites to win this game. But unfortunately, once again, they're not quite there this season. They're having a slightly slow start. I can definitely say the same about Bayer Leverkusen though. Obviously have lost many points. Lost their opening game versus Club Brugge. At the end of the day, looking at both of these two teams, once again, kind of an underwhelming start to the season, but I do think in this next game Atletico Madrid should pick up a win. I mean, I'm not too sure what happened to Bayer Leverkusen versus Brugge. As we know, in terms of their attacking options, they've got Hudson-Odoi, Diaby and Patrick Schick. I mean, it should be a cheat code. They should be scoring goals for fun. But at the end of the day, once again, versus this Atletico Madrid team, I do expect them to get the win. I mean, once again, one of my favorite things about this team at the moment is obviously Griezmann. If he plays more than 30 minutes a game, they're kind of obligated to buy him for £40 million from Barcelona. So in every single game, Atletico Madrid literally just playing for 30 minutes. It's the pettiest thing I've ever seen, but I live for it. It is the best thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's such a petty level that I'm almost surprised Jose Mourinho doesn't manage this team.
What is this?
But now moving on, we've got Bayern Munich versus Barcelona. I mean, such a huge game. It's just a pity this graphic couldn't load here. But obviously, looking at Bayern Munich, in their previous game versus Inter, they were monstrous. In terms of their precision, in terms of their teamwork, the absolute pace of this team, they were absolute monsters. And if they're able to do this versus Barcelona, we could see something very scary. I mean, I would hate to say it, but we could definitely see a replication of history.
No! God, please, no! No!
Obviously, looking at Barcelona, the big talking point of this game is the fact that Robert Lewandowski will face his former team. And this will kind of answer the question of, is he the kind of key decider? Is he the player who makes the difference? Look, looking at Barcelona, I think that they were really good versus Poulsen in their previous game. Obviously, I think on all cylinders they were fighting. I mean, in terms of attack and defense, they seem to be a whole new team. And I would say that this is the best Barcelona team we've maybe seen in 7-8 years. I think this team could do something special. But as I said, looking at Bayern Munich versus Inter, they were just so good. I feel like this could genuinely go either way, and because of that, I could put down a 2-2 draw, and I think the real decider will come late in the Champions League campaign. Once again, yes, I know it's very much a wussy way of escaping this, so of course guys, don't forget to put your predictions down below. Obviously, once again, the person with most accurate predictions from last match week was so-and-so. I forgot to check before this, but I'll put it up there in editing, the magic of editing. So of course guys, if you want to feature next week's video, don't forget to put your predictions down below. But as I said, looking at Barcelona, although I want a fairy tale ending for Lewandowski and for this Barcelona team, I do think it could end all even. Now moving on to our next game, we've got Liverpool versus Ajax. Now Jurgen Klopp must be shitting himself, knowing that Thomas Tuchel was sacked from this Chelsea team, but yet Chelsea are still ahead of Liverpool on the table. Look, obviously Liverpool were smacked silly in that game versus Napoli, a 4-1 loss. And I mean, they just didn't seem to be the normal Liverpool selves, especially versus a Napoli that have lost majority of their best players over the transfer window. Liverpool are going to want to look to pick things up seriously big this time around, but obviously looking at Ajax, it's not going to be an easy encounter. Obviously Ajax won 4-0 versus Rangers in their previous game, which I mean, absolutely massive. If you look at things, they had a 76% possession. I mean, they controlled that game to the max. And versus this Liverpool team, we could see a real surprise. Once again though, I say in every single video, whether it be Premier League or Champions League, that Liverpool have quality and I'm always going to go for them because we know what they can do. But I mean, when you get into like 8-9 games of the season and haven't done that yet, you start to get worried. But at the end of the day, I do feel like Liverpool could come back for this one. I feel like it will be a highly entertaining game, but I am going to go with a 2-3 win. Once again, I feel like Liverpool are going to feel a tiny bit of a shock now, and with the break from Premier League over the weekend, I feel like they're going to get the rest that is needed. Now moving on to our next game, we've got Marseille versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, once again, this isn't a difficult one for me, although Marseille lost quite badly in their obviously Premier League game or in their Champions League game versus Tottenham Hotspurs. They should still get a win versus Frankfurt. As you know, Frankfurt haven't been in a good space whatsoever, whether it be sporting, whether it be in the Bundesliga. They are an absolute mess. And versus this Marseille team that look to be very strong at the moment, I mean, a player like Alexis Sanchez has absolutely revived his career at the club.
And I need you. And I miss you.
At the end of the day, looking at this Marseille team, I think they've got something special in them, and I think they've got the ability to dominate Eintracht Frankfurt. Moving on to our next game, we've got Porto versus Club Brugge. Now, once again, looking at Club Brugge, a team that's very, very special, although they got rid of the Catalera to AC Milan, I still feel like they've got a lot of top quality in their team. Obviously, looking at them in their previous game versus Bayern Leverkusen, in terms of attack and defense, they were brilliant. Simon Mignolet between the posts was an absolute beast. I mean, you could see why he played for a club like Liverpool for so many years. Obviously, looking at Porto, once again, a team that could have a lot of surprises. I mean, they almost got a point versus Atletico Madrid. As we know, a player like Taremi up front is an absolutely brilliant attacker. They've got brilliant players throughout the entire team. I mean, Pepe could come on the field and absolutely break everyone's legs in this team. And looking at both of these two teams, I feel like it could be a very close encounter. I'm very, very tempted to go for a draw. But as I said, I know what Taremi is capable of as an attacker, and I do think Porto will get away with a 2-1 win. Now, moving on to our next game, we've got Rangers versus Napoli. Now, once again, it's not a difficult decision for me. I have to go with Napoli on this one. And a 3-0 win, it might be slightly nice of me to say that. Rangers have lost their last 2 games, 4-0.
That's quite big. Impressive.
And obviously looking at Napoli, they've just beaten Liverpool, previous Champions League winners, 4-1. Looking at these two teams, there is a very, very clear gap at the moment. As much as I hate to say it, in Napoli, I don't feel like I kind of have any excuse but to win this one. Moving on, we've got AC Milan versus Dynamo Zagreb. Now, once again, looking at these two teams, I do feel like there could be a surprise here. Obviously, Zagreb just beat Chelsea as the team that got Thomas Tuchel sacked. And looking at AC Milan, they've just drawn to Salzburg. We could definitely see a surprise here. At the end of the day, though, although Zagreb, I feel like on the attacking and defensive front, can have very, very solid games, I do still think that AC Milan will win this one, and they will win a 2-1. Obviously, once again, looking at this Milan team, over the last few years, they've seriously been growing. It might be one of the strongest Milan teams also we've seen in like about 10 years, much like Barcelona at the moment. And I do feel like once again, they will learn from their mistakes in the previous game. I mean, defensively, they had a few too many mistakes. I think Lord Harry Maguire would be very happy with it. But at the end of the day, as I said, I know what this Milan team's capable of, and I think they're capable of a win. Now, moving on to our next game. This is a very, very tricky one. We've got Shaktar versus Celtic. Now, obviously, Shaktar had an absolutely monstrous start with a 4-1 win versus RB Leipzig. While Celtic, yes, they lost 3-0 to Real Madrid. At the end of the day, we know how good Real Madrid is as a team, and to be fair, a 3-0 loss isn't that bad. I think Real Madrid could get a 3-0 win versus most teams around the world, whether it be PSG, Man City, Chelsea, whoever it is. We know what Real Madrid are capable of. So of course I don't take it too harshly towards Celtic. I still think they're a fantastic team. And versus Shaktar, it could be a really interesting mashup. Once again, Shaktar always seems to surprise in the Champions League. I feel like this could genuinely go either way. And once again, because I don't have a very obvious win in my head, I'm going to put forward a 2-2 draw, as I do think it will be incredibly close. Now, of course, moving on, we've got Chelsea versus Salzburg. Now, once again, looking at Salzburg, I feel like it's a team much like Dynamo Zagreb that can always have surprises on the attacking front, can be very, very scary. And looking at the attacking options from Salzburg versus AC Milan, they were, once again, relentless. They were ruthless. They really bounced back at every opportunity. And once again, versus this Chelsea team could be absolutely massive. Once again, whether Potter is going to put a spell on this Chelsea team and change absolutely anything. Once again, only time will tell. This will be his first game in charge of Chelsea. Once again, in my honest opinion, he's probably the best English manager out there, and I do expect Chelsea to do something versus Salzburg. I do feel like them losing a manager so early on the season, for them to get this much criticism, I do think that they will get a tiny bit of a shock and they will bounce back from it. I'm going to put forward a 2-1 win. Once again, small steps for Graham Potter. Now, of course, moving on to one of our final games, we've got Copenhagen versus Sevilla. Now, I hate to say it about the Danish club, but even versus a 16th place Sevilla in La Liga, I don't give Copenhagen too much of a chance. Obviously, looking at them in the Danish league, they've gotten 5 losses and 4 wins in their first 9 games. Once again, you do expect better from them, and they obviously lost 3-0 to Dortmund in their previous game. Once again, they just don't seem to be up to standard. And even versus a struggling Sevilla team, I expect them to get the result. Now, of course, moving on, we've got Juventus versus Benfica. Now, once again, I do feel like this is a fixture that could be a lot closer than one initially thinks. Obviously, looking at Juve, they seem to be losing many points this season, where they shouldn't, although not all losses. Sometimes they get draws from those games. At the end of the day, I don't quite think this Juventus team is what it was a few years ago. It's so weird how they went from total dominance in the Italian league to really falling off to not being within the top 2 favourites to win the league. Once again, it's scary to see, but once again, it's kind of just the cycle of football that you go up and down over the years. Obviously, looking at Benfica, they were absolutely terrific in their previous game versus Maccabi Haifa. Once again, although not the highest of oppositions. Looking at Benfica, when it came to defensive displays, when it came to attacking displays, they had a really good time out, and I feel like a huge surprise could happen here, which is kind of why I'm going for a 1-1 draw. As I said, you look at players like Rafa Silva, you look at the rest of this Benfica squad, obviously Neres and so many others. I think we could see a real surprise here. Once again, I don't have a clear favourite to win here, which is why I'm putting forward a draw. Now, moving on to our next game, we've got HIFA versus PSG. Now, once again, I'd like to say there's a surprise here, but I mean, there really shouldn't be, as I do think PSG will win this one 4-0. Once again, nothing bad to HIFA. I think that they definitely had their moments in the previous game, and once again, it's nothing bad against them, but they are in an insanely difficult group, and versus PSG, who I would put up there as one of the best clubs in the world right now, I don't expect anything less than a total dominant performance. As we know, in terms of Lionel Messi's assists at the moment, I mean, he's gotten more assists in 2022 than any other player around the world, and not enough people are talking about that. Kylian Mbappe scoring goals, Neymar is doing both of those parts with goals and assists. At the end of the day, PSG, you've got no excuse but to win this one. Now, of course, moving on, we've got Man City versus Borussia Dortmund. Now, of course, a lot like the Barcelona Bayern Munich game in terms of Lewandowski's return, we've got another giant German club return, as Erling Haaland will be facing his former team. Now, once again, looking at Borussia Dortmund, they hadn't had the best of starts in the Bundesliga this season. And up until recently, I mean, they just lost to RB Leipzig 3-0. Once again, it's kind of shaky considering it's under a brand new manager for RB Leipzig. But looking at Borussia Dortmund, as we know, they've got so much talent in this team. They obviously got a very strong win versus Sevilla in the Champions League last time around. Looking at Man City, once again, as we know, absolutely monstrous team, unbeaten in the Premier League. Obviously, in terms of Erling Haaland, 10 goals in his first 6 Premier League games. I can't believe that there are genuinely people out there who didn't give them a chance.
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
As I said, at the end of the day, I don't expect anyone but Man City to win this one. It could be an entertaining game out, but I am going to put forward a 3-1 win. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to our final Champions League game of, match week 2. Obviously, don't forget, if you have been enjoying this video and you look to see more in the future, don't forget to subscribe down below. I would really appreciate it. But looking at Real Madrid versus RB Leipzig, once again, RB Leipzig were absolutely smacked by Shaktar in the previous game. Looking at Real Madrid, obviously in their previous game, beat Celtic 3-0. As we know, when it comes to La Liga, they're looking very, very comfortable. And I mean, up there with a PSG, a Man City, and maybe one or two other names, I would put Real Madrid as the best team in the world. And versus a very much a struggling RB Leipzig team, I don't expect anything but a very, very strong win. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today's video in terms of Champions League Match Week 2 predictions. Once again, let me know what you think in the comment section down below in terms of results. As I said, we've definitely got some huge games coming up. But of course, once again, Champions League, you love to see it, even though my team's not in it at the moment. But guys, once again, don't forget to like and subscribe down below if you did enjoy. Once again, on the road to 10,000 subscribers, it would be very, very cool to hit that. But guys, this has been fun. FYNN. Until next time, cheers.